Hello.
Yeah.
I'm Lamore. I'm the engineer.
Brains!
He comes up with the designs, or I engineer them, and I run Adafruit, which is a New York company that does open source hardware, kits, tutorials, and projects, and other stuff.
She won't talk about herself, but she won an EFF Pioneer Award, and then she was on the cover of Wired this year.
Yes!
The first female engineer on the cover of Wired.
Yes, that was an awesome
I went to the States, and the very first thing I did was I went shopping for Wired.
In the airport.
Yep.
Hello.
So,
Again.
Yeah, we did our introductions. Lamore was recently on the cover of Wired this year, April edition, for her pioneering work in open source hardware. So one of the things about Adafruit is we give away everything. So in open source hardware is finally a movement. There was an open source hardware summit as we were leaving the US. And every year I try to write an article about open source hardware. So 5 years ago, there was only a couple people, like literally 2 people, doing what they were calling open source hardware, and only a few projects. And then the next year it was 10 people and 10 projects. And the next year after that, it was around 50 people, around 50 projects. Now I had to stop doing the article. It's 5 years later. There's thousands of people doing open source hardware, thousands of projects. It's impossible to keep track of. And the milestone that I keep track of now is how many Arduinos are out there. So Arduino is probably up to around 350,000, 400,000 units shipped, which means sometime next year there'll be 1 million Arduinos out there. So I'm going to start a betting pool. And,
Is the number still rising?
It's hockey sticking.
Oh, absolutely.
In fact, it's going faster than I could keep track. So now I tweet to Massimo, who's part of the Arduino team, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong when I make estimates. So the last time I'm like, oh, there's 250,000, and he's like, no,
That was
Vito,
5 minutes ago.
it's 300,000. And so we have an Arduino derivative. We make lots of Arduino shields. Lamore is one of the people who work on the Arduino, one of the Arduino libraries.
Yeah, I help out with maintaining the IDE.
And a lot of people, because we hear from customers, learn Arduino through her tutorials. So we're kind of a tutorial company that has a gift shop at the end, where you can buy a product if you want. Maybe you could talk about the start of Adafruit.
Yeah, sure. This is the first project that I worked on. This is a Roland TV303 clone. So it's a synthesizer that was discontinued in the mid-'80s. And despite being discontinued, its popularity has risen because that's how audio people are. Because it's all analog, there's some debate about whether you can have a digital synthesis version of it. This is a full analog reproduction that we made by reverse engineering the original schematics. And the reason we decided to open source it was because we were frustrated that there were many DIY clones that nobody had released the files for. So once every year, there was like 3 people who just kept remaking the same synthesizer over and over again. So we thought, like, okay, well, let's try making a kit for it and also releasing all the files so that, even if we don't want to maintain it anymore, which we don't actually, we don't sell or maintain this project anymore, other people can take it on and do distribution or manufacturing or maintenance. So that's kind of an interesting beginning for where open source hardware, for me, started was this project and the frustrations of seeing non-open source versions.
As Lamore mentioned, we do open source hardware. So this is the schematic for one of the more popular kits. This is the TV Be Gone. Some of you have met Mitch Altman. And so I was joking today, one of the best things I ever did in my life was introduce Mitch Altman to Lamore, maybe about 5 years ago. And Mitch had an assembled TV Be Gone. That's how he made his money. That's what he did for a living. And I said, Mitch, you could change the world and travel the world and teach people how to make these instead of just selling them as assembled goods. And he's like, that sounds like a good idea. How could I do that? So him and Lamore worked on the TV Be Gone kit together. And one of the fun hacks with teaching people is when people are not supposed to be doing something, especially kids, they'll do it. So I kind of feel like the things that you guys are doing with Geiger counters to me, my impression is it's almost as if people, maybe the government here doesn't want you to do this. Maybe they don't want the information shared. And so it's extra motivation. And you're kind of getting away with something. you have more information and more knowledge. And so I think the TV Be Gone was always one of those projects. And we just hear from so many kids. So Make is now about 6 years old. And when we started, there were kids that were 16, 15, 14. And now they just graduated engineering school. and their parents at Maker Faire, or they'll email Lamore, or they'll say, hey, you know, my kid was just playing video games and, you know, kind of a loser. And he starting
And he's still a loser. But
and until he or she got into electronics, and then it was over.
Then it went down.
And then it was over. They turned into different people. And so things like the TV Be Gone, at first it's like, well, like, why is my kid learning how to turn off televisions with this thing they made? But it's like, oh my gosh, my kid's learning how to turn off televisions with something they made. So, fun side story, Steve Jobs got his start making a device that turned off TVs too, if anyone is curious. So this is the Minty boost, and maybe Lamore can talk a little bit about this. This is one of our most popular products, and it charges iPhones and iPods.
Yeah, this is a really basic kit. So we wanted to design kits. Came before the TV Gone. So we wanted to design electronic kits that were useful after they were built. Because a lot of electronics kits and tutorials were sort of like, you know, okay, now you have like a buzzer or like a blinking Christmas tree. It's not very interesting and not very useful. So a lot of kits would get made and then like thrown out. So we wanted to make stuff that, like the TV Gone, the Minty was just something that in and of itself is both intuitive in use and is desirable. So this is something that you can make and then you'll actually carry it with you.
You carry it with you, and the other thing is everything charges via USB. And there's millions, hundreds of millions of devices, and specifically like iPhone and iPod type things. And because of the way physics works, well, the batteries are never going to be great. So this is a great project, and people take it with them and they share it and they show it to each other.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's a universal power supply for everything. This is one of the other things we do, and we're not going to talk about. We have projects that we do. So, one of the things that we do is we try to make enough money so we can do whatever we want. And one of the things is do illegal things or things that are somewhat questionable. So with last year, November, we hacked the Kinect, and we had a bounty so people could have open source drivers for the Kinect. It's a wonderful distance sensing camera, and we thought that would be a fun thing to do. And Microsoft, they threatened to sue us. The EFF almost had to step in, but in the end, Microsoft decided to embrace it. Now they're having an SDK, and now they think this is the greatest thing ever. So that was like one of our kind of subversive projects. We also made a flashlight that makes you throw up. We reverse engineered a patent from the U.S. government that from a DARPA thing that it's to control crowds. So it's a flashlight that flashes and makes crowds throw up, so they don't protest anymore. Yeah.
Does that work?
So
No.
yeah, it doesn't work. They're called. Yeah, there's a patent on it. That's how we figured it out. So we decided to release it as an open source hardware project, and now it's a fun rave toy. Like, yeah. And so the project that Lamar will talk about in a second is this is how she I think kind of got put on the map. This is a open source cell phone jammer that fits inside of a pack of cigarettes. You want to talk about?
Well, it's I mean, there's like a lot of details online. There's a lot of people who are building them, and it's one of those projects that I built this under sort of semi-commissioned by an art gallery. They sort of said they'd give me an art fellowship if I made these for the owner of the art gallery, and I was like, okay, so I had to actually work on this. But it's interesting because, you know, this is something that you can't sell, can't use, can't buy legally, but it is legal to design, prototype, and document. So that's one of the nice things about open source hardware is that you can distribute information in U.S. law at least, even if it's not something that you can actually use or manufacture or own.
And this is one of the fun projects, because when people get asked what devices do they hate, they always say cell phones and alarm clocks and TVs. So we took care of TVs. We got cell phones. Alarm clocks aren't there yet. You gotta work on that one. Another project that Lamore made, this is the Spoke Pavs. So we try to do things that kind of share the fun in electronics. So this is the Persistence of Vision style kit that when you ride a bicycle, it lights up. So this is Pac-Man, and you can build these. These were popular at Burning Man.
Yeah.
And
They're still popular. We have people in the Hackerspace that just come because they want to build.
yeah.
To flash images on their bicycles.
Another thing that we did not too long ago, and I kind of have a fun Tokyo story with this, is about 5 years ago we bought a laser cutter, and it was an Epilogue 35 watt, and we decided to open up a side business of laser etching on top of laptops. So we would charge people in New York $100, they'd bring in their artwork, and we would laser etch their laptop, and we kept doing this until the machine paid for itself. And then we open sourced the business plan, all the files, everything we did, and someone actually made a company that all they did was laser etch laptops in malls in the U.S. and they sold their company for like $10 million. So we think like this is a fun, like we didn't want to do that for a living, but we thought it would be neat. And so we went to the Sony store in Ginza, and in the Sony store, their big thing now is laser etching cameras. And so it's anodized aluminum, and they have the same laser as us. And we asked, could we see it? And they said no, because it doesn't say Sony on it. So yeah, so it's in a back room that you can't see. But it's interesting in the personalization of gadgets and being able to share this type of information made it possible for someone else to have a business. Now we use this primarily to cut out enclosures for our open source clock, for cutting out the little gels for the open source necklace that we'll show you. But it's neat because hackerspaces are now all starting to adopt lasers, and they can get all of the tools and all the things they need from us, and they can start a business. There's a couple hackerspaces that charge money for using the laser cutter, so it allows them to buy a laser cutter and pay for it. One of the things we're known for, I kind of made a joke before, is our tutorials. So this is where a lot of people learn how to do Arduino stuff. So we have probably, I think, some of the best tutorials online, and then we have around 200 other tutorials. So XB to sensors to parts to tools, and we try to post a new tutorial every single week. We have Tutorial Tuesday, and we also do a few other things. We have a show called Ask an Engineer. Sometimes we get really busy, and sometimes more get shy. So we still want to do things like go to conferences, but we weren't able to. So for 2 years, we've done a weekly show called Ask an Engineer, where up to 2,000 people watch it live online. It's streaming over Ustream, a video streaming service, and they can ask her engineering questions. And they're able to show their projects on Google Plus now, because that's a new thing. And they can go to the Google Plus Hangout and show their project, whatever it is they want to show. And then we answer questions for about an hour, like engineering questions. So it allows people to get in contact with an engineer, and maybe they can't fly all around the world and go to a conference. Maybe they can't go to a maker fair. Maybe they can't, come here to a hackerspace or whatever. And so we've been doing that for a while. We just had our 2-year anniversary. This is the first time we've taken off any time in 2 years. So this is what it looked like. This is Lamore and I. This is inside the use, and we just have all this stuff, and we do Ask an Engineer. And then the last thing that we've been really interested in doing is making other Adafruits. So we tried really hard to promote open source hardware, find other people who can do it, and get it to a point where it looks like there's value in sharing information. It's neat to see all the Arduino stuff happening with like the Geiger counters. Like it was distributed and people can do stuff right away. So we decided, well, let's try to help other people make businesses. So this is our inventory. We made a predictive inventory system. We've open sourced it. We show all the stuff every week on our website. We have ZenCart Zensday, where you can hack an open source shopping cart so you can make your own Adafruit. We have Part Finder Friday, where we show you where all the parts we get. So we're trying to expose all the parts of Adafruit so other people don't have to struggle like we did for the last 5 years. They can just start making their own business. And then we also show people what we get. So this is a scale. This is a shuttle computer. This is a printer. These are all the things that we use to run Adafruit, and we do little videos about how we use the postal system and how we use UPS and how we use FedEx, so they can just make their own. This is a cart of packages. So we have, this is how it starts out in the morning, and by the end of the day, we have probably about 20 of these filled up per day. We have around 150, 200 orders a day. And we tell people how we do this, how we do the packaging, how we work with the Postal Service. And then we decided to have a Hackerspace discount recently. So if you're a Hackerspace anywhere in the world, you get to be an Adafruit reseller. So you get up to like 40% off our kits. All you have to do is email us, and just took your Hackerspace as one of them. And then the reason why we're here is we just launched a new product. These are called the iCufflinks. So if you look really close, this is a cufflink here and a cufflink here. That's me in a suit, which is rare, but I wore one for this. And we decided that electronics, and specifically wearable electronics, they weren't fun, and you couldn't wear them, and they were always like wires hanging out, and it was always kind of a novelty, and people kind of made fun of you. It's just like, there's nothing beautiful about open source hardware yet. It was always like a dev board with a chip on top. So these are pulsating power buttons. Lamore is wearing one right now. These are the iCufflinks, so I guess it's kind of like the Guy version. This is what they look like. And it's an open. We posted the files on GitHub, so you can mill these out on your own. The code is online. Someone already took our code and optimized it, so we went from like 16 hours of battery life to like 20 something. And this is the latest one that we just released last week. This is the eye necklace. And so we came to Japan because we wanted to do some research, and we're doing an open source watch next. So we were able to go to one of the many buildings devoted to watches in Tokyo, because there's like there's like 20 different places where you can go to 7 floors of watches. So we're doing research, figuring out if people are buying watches, what are they looking for, how are they made, what are the interesting things with LEDs, like watches. Why have a watch? You have a phone, so you're wearing it for other reasons. So we wanted to do some research, and that's why we're here. So thank you.
Thanks.